You're not bad with money. You're not lazy. You're not careless. And you're not failing because you don't earn enough. You get paid. You feel a brief sense of relief. And then, quietly, almost politely, the balance drops again. Not because of one big mistake. This video is not about budgeting apps. It's not about cutting joy. And it's not about extreme discipline. It's about something much deeper. Something most people never notice until years have passed. It's called the consumption trap. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. Because this trap doesn't feel like a trap. It feels like life. You wake up. You go to work. You handle responsibilities. You reward yourself for surviving another long day. You tell yourself, I deserve this. And you're right, you do. But here's the uncomfortable truth. The problem isn't that you're spending too much. The problem is why you're spending. Most people believe they're broke because they don't earn enough. But many people who earn more feel just as stuck, just as anxious, just as confused. Money comes in, money goes out, and somehow the future never arrives. Not next month, not next year, not after things settle down. It's always later. If this feels familiar, it's not because you lack willpower. It's because the system around you is designed to pull you into constant consumption, and the system inside you is designed to cooperate with it. You were never taught how to notice this. No one explained it in simple language. No one warned you that comfort can quietly become a cage. So instead, you blame yourself. You think, I should be better at this. Other people have it figured out. Once I earn more, everything will be fine. But earning more doesn't fix a pattern you can't see. Imagine pouring water into a bucket with tiny holes. Not a big, dramatic leak. Just small ones. Barely noticeable. You keep pouring. The bucket never fills. And eventually, you start questioning the water instead of the holes. That's what the consumption trap looks like in real life. It's not luxury. It's not excess. It's normal life slightly upgraded every year. A slightly better phone. A slightly more comfortable routine. A few more small treats because life is stressful. A few subscriptions you meant to cancel. Nothing feels wrong. Nothing feels reckless. Everything feels reasonable. And that's why it works. The trap doesn't shout. It whispers. It says, you work hard. You've had a long day. This will make things easier. You can worry about the future later. Later becomes years. Years become habits. What makes this even harder is comparison. Not the obvious kind. The subtle kind. You don't compare mansions or yachts. You compare normal lives. You see people who look like they're doing fine. Same job. Same age. Same city. They go out. They buy things. They travel occasionally. They seem relaxed. So you assume you should be able to do the same. If they can afford it, why can't you? What you don't see is their stress, their debt, their future worries, or the version of them that wakes up at night wondering why nothing is saved. Everyone looks fine from the outside. Everyone feels pressure on the inside. And this pressure pushes you to keep consuming, just to feel normal. That's the trap. It turns survival into spending, stress into shopping, exhaustion into small rewards that add up quietly. It disconnects money from intention. You're no longer choosing where your money goes. You're reacting to stress, reacting to boredom, reacting to fear of missing out, reacting to the need to feel okay, just for today. And today always wins against tomorrow. Not because tomorrow isn't important, but because tomorrow feels abstract. Today feels real. Today has emotions. Today has pressure. Today has tiredness. Tomorrow is just an idea. So when people say, just save more, it feels insulting. Because you already feel stretched. You already feel like you're doing your best. This isn't about discipline. It's about awareness. Once you see the consumption trap, you realize something important. You were never weak. This video isn't here to scare you. It's here to slow things down. To help you notice the invisible forces shaping your money. To help you understand why being responsible still feels like you're going nowhere. To help you step out of a pattern that keeps smart, hardworking people feeling stuck. Because the moment you understand the trap, you regain choice. And choice is where freedom starts. Let's slow this down and look at real life. Not dramatic moments, not financial disasters, just normal days. You wake up already thinking about responsibilities, work, messages, things you didn't finish yesterday. By the time the day ends, your energy is gone. Your brain feels heavy. Your patience is thin. So you reach for relief. Not because you're careless, but because you're human. Maybe it's ordering food instead of cooking. Maybe it's buying something small online. Maybe it's upgrading a routine to make life feel easier. None of these decisions feel like bad money choices. They feel like coping. And that's important. Most spending today isn't about desire. It's about relief. Relief from stress. Relief from boredom. Relief from feeling stuck. You don't wake up planning to overspend. You wake up planning to survive the day. So money slowly becomes a tool for emotional balance. Not intentionally. Quietly. You tell yourself, I'll be careful next month. This is just a phase. Once things calm down, I'll focus. But things rarely calm down. Life keeps adding pressure. Bills don't arrive all at once. They drip in. Regular. Predictable. Easy to ignore individually. Subscriptions you forgot about. Small charges that don't feel worth the effort to cancel. Convenience fees. Comfort upgrades. Nothing screams problem. But together, they create a background noise of spending. Always there. Always draining. You check your balance sometimes and feel confused. Not shocked. Just confused. Where did it go? You remember buying a few things. You remember paying bills. You remember being reasonable. Yet the number doesn't match the effort you put in. So you start mentally negotiating with yourself. I won't buy anything extra this week. I'll be more careful. I'll skip going out. And maybe you do. For a short time. But then something happens. A bad day. An argument. A long week. A moment where you feel you've earned a break. And this spending comes back. Not as rebellion. As comfort. This creates a quiet emotional cycle. Stress builds. Spending relieves it briefly. Guilt follows. Resolve forms. Stress builds again. No one talks about this part. Because it feels personal. Because it feels like a character flaw. So instead of questioning the pattern, you question yourself. Why can't I stick to anything? Why am I like this? Why do I feel behind all the time? But here's the truth most people miss. Your spending habits didn't form randomly. They formed in response to your environment. Modern life is intense. Constant stimulation. Constant comparison. Constant pressure to keep up. Not with luxury. With normal expectations. A decent phone. A comfortable home. Occasional outings. Quick solutions instead of slow ones. You're not chasing extravagance. You're chasing stability and ease. But ease has a price. And when that price becomes invisible, it grows. Think about how often money decisions are made when you're tired. Late at night. After a long day. When your brain just wants things to be simple. That's when the small decisions happen. Click. Tap. Order. Upgrade. No reflection. No long-term thinking. Just relief. And then there's social pressure. Not loud pressure. Silent pressure. You see others living what looks like a normal life. So you try to match that normal. You don't want to feel left out. You don't want to feel like you're falling behind. You don't want to feel like you're failing at adulthood. So you spend to stay aligned with what feels expected. This isn't about impressing strangers. It's about avoiding discomfort. The discomfort of saying no. The discomfort of feeling different. The discomfort of slowing down in a fast world. So consumption becomes a way to stay emotionally level, to stay socially acceptable, to stay sane. And again, nothing feels extreme. That's the dangerous part. Extreme problems get attention. Quiet problems blend into daily life. The consumption trap thrives in the quiet.
It thrives in routines, in habits, in this is just how things are. You don't feel broke in a dramatic way. You feel tight, restricted, always a little behind. You delay goals. You postpone plans. You tell yourself it's not the right time. Saving feels hard, not because you don't care, but because there's always something more immediate, something louder, something closer. Money meant for the future gets borrowed by the present, again and again, until the future feels distant and unrealistic. This creates a strange emotional tension. You work hard. You do what you're supposed to do, yet you don't feel progress. And when effort doesn't create visible movement, motivation slowly dies. You stop believing change is possible. Not consciously, emotionally. So you lean even more into comfort. Because comfort is immediate. Progress feels theoretical. This is where many people get stuck for years. Not because they don't want better, but because they're exhausted. Exhausted from trying. Exhausted from feeling like they're always adjusting but never advancing. Exhausted from hearing advice that doesn't match how life actually feels. The consumption trap doesn't trap you with greed. It traps you with fatigue. It convinces you that this is the best you can do, that everyone feels this way, that money stress is just part of adult life. But it doesn't have to be. Before anything can change, you have to understand why this pattern exists. Not on paper, but in your mind. Because until you understand the psychology behind it, you'll keep fighting symptoms instead of the cause. And that's what we'll explore next. To understand the consumption trap, we have to stop looking at money as math. Because for most people, money decisions aren't logical. They're emotional. They're automatic. They're shaped by the way the human brain works under pressure. Your brain is not designed to think long-term when it's tired, stressed, or overwhelmed. It's designed to protect you right now. So when life feels heavy, your brain looks for relief. Not optimal decisions, not future security. Relief. That's the first key. Most people think spending happens because they want things. What actually happens is that spending happens because they want a feeling. Comfort, ease, control, normalcy. A brief sense that everything is okay. Think of your brain like a guard. Its job is to reduce pain and increase comfort. It doesn't care about your future plans. It cares about whether you feel safe and stable in this moment. So when you feel stressed, your brain doesn't say, let's protect our future self. It says, let's make this feeling stop. And consumption is one of the fastest ways to do that. It's immediate. It's socially accepted. It doesn't require explanation. That's why the consumption trap is so powerful. It aligns perfectly with how your brain already works. Now let's look at a common misunderstanding.
What people think, if I just had more discipline, I wouldn't spend like this. What actually happens? Discipline weakens under emotional load. When you're rested, calm, and confident, it's easy to say no. So the issue isn't discipline, it's emotional bandwidth. Every day, your mental energy gets used up. By work, by decisions, by responsibilities, by uncertainty. By the end of the day, there's very little left. And that's when most spending decisions happen. Late, quick, unexamined. This is why advice like track every expense often fails. Not because it's useless. You don't overspend when you're calm and intentional. You overspend when you're depleted. Another psychological layer is identity. You don't just buy things. You buy what feels appropriate for the kind of person you think you are, or should be. An adult, a professional, someone who's doing okay, someone who isn't struggling. So you spend in ways that protect that identity. You avoid feeling behind. You avoid feeling cheap. You avoid feeling like you're failing at life. This isn't vanity. It's self-preservation. Humans are deeply uncomfortable feeling out of place. So we spend to stay aligned with what feels normal for our environment, even if that normal quietly keeps us broke. There's also something called mental accounting, not as a technical concept, but as a feeling. Money doesn't feel like one whole thing. It feels like separate buckets. This bill money, this fun money, this small treats don't count money. So when you spend a little here and a little there, your brain doesn't register it as loss. It registers it as harmless until the total shows up later. And by then, the emotional connection is gone. You don't feel the pain at the moment of spending. You feel it later when it's too late to change anything. That delay is critical. Immediate pleasure. Delayed consequence. The human brain is terrible at handling that combination. Now add repetition. The first time you upgrade something, it feels special. The second time, it feels normal. The third time, it feels necessary. This is adaptation. What once felt like a luxury slowly becomes your baseline, and anything below that baseline feels like deprivation. So even if your income increases, your sense of enough moves with it, not because you're greedy, but because your brain recalibrates quickly. That's why earning more doesn't automatically fix money stress. If the psychological pattern stays the same, the trap simply expands. Another powerful force is avoidance. Thinking deeply about money can be uncomfortable. It brings up fear, regret, uncertainty, so the brain avoids it. Instead of sitting with discomfort, you stay busy. You focus on tasks. You handle what's immediate. Spending becomes a way to avoid thinking, to postpone reflection. I'll deal with it later feels safer than let me look at this honestly, and later keeps getting pushed forward. This creates a strange illusion. You feel like you're constantly doing something with money, paying bills, managing expenses, making adjustments, but you're rarely stepping back, rarely asking, is this pattern actually serving me? Because stepping back requires emotional space, and emotional space is rare. So the consumption trap isn't a single bad habit. It's a system built from stress, identity, avoidance, and adaptation. A system that runs quietly in the background. A system that feels normal. Until one day, you look up and realize years have passed, and nothing solid has been built. Not because you didn't try, but because you were solving the wrong problem. You were fighting spending instead of understanding it. The moment you see this, something shifts. You stop seeing yourself as the problem and start seeing the pattern. And once you can see the pattern, you can interrupt it. But before we talk about change, we need to talk about the cost. Not the obvious cost, the invisible one, the one that doesn't show up on receipts, but shapes your entire future. Up to now, the consumption trap has mostly felt emotional. Stress, relief, confusion, fatigue. But the real cost of the trap isn't just emotional, it's structural. It quietly reshapes your future without asking for permission. The invisible cost isn't one bad month, it's the slow erosion of options. When most of your money is already spoken for, your life becomes reactive. You don't choose based on what's best, you choose based on what's possible right now. You stay in situations longer than you want. You delay changes you know would help. You avoid risks that could improve your life. Not because you lack courage, but because you lack margin. Margin is what consumption quietly steals. Margin is breathing room. Margin is flexibility. Margin is the ability to say no without panic. When consumption absorbs everything, your future becomes fragile. And fragility doesn't feel dramatic. It feels like constant low-level anxiety. A worrying that something small could knock everything off balance. A sense that you're always one step away from stress. A feeling that life is harder than it should be. This is why the consumption trap is so damaging. It doesn't just take money. It takes time. Years pass where progress is delayed, not destroyed, just postponed. And postponed long enough, goals start to feel unrealistic. You stop planning long-term. You stop imagining different versions of your life. You focus on maintaining instead of building. That's the real cost. Now here's the turning point. The shift doesn't come from cutting everything. It doesn't come from punishment. And it doesn't come from trying to be a different person. It comes from one simple realization. Not every expense is equal, but every expense shapes your future self. Once you understand that, money stops being about restriction and starts being about direction. The goal isn't to spend less. The goal is to spend on purpose. This is where things change. Instead of asking, can I afford this? You start asking, what does this make easier later? This reframes everything. Because the consumption trap survives on unconscious spending, it weakens the moment spending becomes intentional. So here's a simple framework. Not complicated, not extreme, just practical. Step 1, slow the moment of spending. Not forever, just slightly. Create a pause between feeling and action. A pause long enough for awareness to enter. Most spending happens automatically. Breaking automation breaks the trap. Even a short delay changes behavior because it moves the decision from emotion to intention. Step 2, separate relief from reward. Relief is about reducing stress. Reward is about celebration. The trap happens when relief becomes expensive. Instead of asking, what can I buy to feel better? Ask, what actually restores me? Often, the answer isn't consumption. It's rest, space, silence, movement, time without pressure. When relief becomes cheaper, money stops bleeding. Step 3. Choose one area to downshift. Not everything. Just one. One habit. One upgrade. One recurring expense that no longer adds real value. This isn't sacrifice. It's correction. Downshifting one area creates margin. Margin creates calm. Calm makes better decisions possible. Step 4. Give your future a small, visible claim. Not a perfect plan, just a presence. When the future has no claim on your money, the present takes everything. Even a small, consistent allocation changes how spending feels. Because now, every impulse competes with something meaningful. That competition is healthy. Step 5. Redefine doing well. Not as looking normal, not as keeping up, but as feeling stable. Stability is underrated, but stability compounds. It reduces stress. It improves thinking. It creates confidence that isn't dependent on appearances. Now, let's make this real. Imagine someone with an average income. No extremes. No dramatic changes. They don't stop enjoying life. They don't track every detail. They don't aim for perfection. They simply pause before spending. They cut one habit that no longer mattered. They stop using money as stress relief. They give the future a small, steady place. Nothing magical happens in a month, but something important happens in a year. They feel less anxious, less reactive, more in control. Not rich, just grounded. That grounding changes everything. Common misconceptions fall away here. This isn't about deprivation. It's about alignment. This isn't about being strict. It's about being awake. This isn't about never spending. It's about not letting spending decide your life for you. The long-term payoff isn't luxury. It's peace. It's waking up without immediate money stress. It's making choices without fear. It's knowing that time is working with you, not against you. The consumption trap promises comfort today and steals comfort tomorrow. Stepping out of it doesn't require force. It requires clarity. Once you see how the trap works, you don't need motivation. You naturally start choosing differently because you finally understand what's at stake. And that understanding is enough. Not to change everything overnight, but to change direction. And direction is how futures are built.